Truly happy to have some time to spend with you again. But I better hurry up before my son gets back from his extracurriculars and I have to bounce and get supper on the table. This time, I'd like to talk about the upcoming election. Personally, while I tend to lean conservative, I'd like to think that as an educated woman, I can keep an open mind. And as far as current candidates are concerned, I would have to say that this upcoming election is seemingly shaping up to be quite interesting. More interesting every day, in fact, with our former president currently indicted and our current president with some pretty salacious speculation about him. There are plenty of people in this election I like, some I definitely dislike, and others I don't know much about yet or heard enough from yet to form an intelligent and educated opinion, and so remain impartial and indifferent, and that spans across both sides of the political spectrum. Yes, and again, yes. I'll admit it, I do tend to lean more to the right. But I think, at least I know for myself, that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., despite being a Democrat, because he's more of an old school Democrat, is a pretty good and pretty impressive candidate, especially for the Democratic Party. In fact, I seem to completely rather concur with him on his stance on vaccines and a variety of other issues, including his perspective concerning the FBI's involvement and perhaps cover-up in the assassination of JFK, one of the most prominent, most well-liked, most well-respected, and most fondly remembered Democrats. A Democrat that would have been ashamed of the Democrats and Democrat Party of today. I think he's probably rolling over in his grave. As far as the Republicans are concerned, though I currently have not heard much of his policy, and I do pay close attention, from the little I have heard, I do like Vivek Ramaswamy. But again, it's too early in the game, and I will have to hear more. Trump has been my man since 2016. Why so? Well, because he is number one, an outsider. A fact which I absolutely love. Did I say love? Also, he was financially and socially well established before throwing his hat in the ring. And he was willing to take, and in fact did take the job, sans pay, which I think should be mandatory. Did I say mandatory? Oh, hell yes, I did. Mandatory for every politician. Politicians, after all, are public servants. And I'm emphasizing the word servant. Why? Well, because if you think about it, servants are typically not from the upper rungs of society. Rather, traditionally, they are from the lower socioeconomic strata and usually work for people of greater wealth, greater education, and greater prominence, and typically for minimum wage. And they therefore customarily do not become part of the affluent elites they were hired to work for. Quite a dichotomy from today's paradigm and social norm. Those in power get there or got there because we the people, hired them and garnered their power and prominence for them. They got it because of us. And so they should, at least to some extent, be one of us, have the ability to understand us, work on our behalf, and certainly never earn more than us, live above us, or rise above us, which is how the swamp currently carries out business. Dirty, funny, monkey business, to be exact. Additionally, and furthermore, Donald Trump says it like it is, even if you don't like his approach or the words he chooses or how he says it. Despite his abrasiveness, he has valid points, and he's not afraid to put his opinions or himself out there on the chopping block, even if it means it will garner unfavorable press. And he's not afraid to put his money where his mouth is. Donald Trump doesn't necessarily give a hoot, a holler, or a damn about what people think or what the media thinks of him, his opinion or his approach. He'd rather put his care and concern where it belongs, on getting the job done. He is a confident person, a confident man and leader who is not in search of validation and fully understands that he was hired to not to be liked. He was hired to do a job. And that job includes doing his best for you, his best for me, for our families, and for our country, and to make our lives rather, not necessarily his life better, although if his life gets better, so be it, and to ensure that our nation is one to be looked up to, one that leads by example, and that is nationally and internationally and globally admired, revered, and respected. Still, as much as I have always supported Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis is making it hard for me to choose and or commit. DeSantis is, as far as I'm concerned, another great pick. The man has already proved himself. Yes, I said proved, because in my opinion, you can't earn, yes, I said earn, the right and the privilege to rule the people until you prove yourself first. DeSantis single-handedly reinvented Florida, for the better, by the way. True, he got his chance because of Donald Trump and his endorsement. And yes, because the people put their faith in Trump and therefore in the people he promoted. But DeSantis did not take his endorsement or his election lightly. Instead, he took it rather quite seriously. He said what he meant and meant what he said and got the job done, proving himself not only to his supporters, but to those who did not support him, and most importantly, to Trump, who supported him and endorsed him. He turned Florida around and made it one of the, if not the most favorable states to live in. Heck, even the former president, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his entire family lived there, as do many of both Trump and DeSantis's Democratic opponents and oppressors who have voluntarily chosen, yes, voluntarily chosen to make and call Florida their home. It is, after all, a beautiful, currently mostly safe state that is affordable to live in, has glorious weather that Ron DeSantis nor Donald Trump had anything to do with, LOL. A state that once again, thanks to Ron DeSantis and his no-nonsense approach and policies, does not buy into the ridiculous rhetoric to appease the people. Ridiculous rhetoric including CRT, LGBTQ theory, drag queen happy hours, story hours, brunches, etc. DeSantis has even taken on Florida's Goliath, the woke version of Disney that has left Walt turning over in his grave, and grateful perhaps that he is not alive to see the disgrace that now defines what he worked so hard to build. A once family-friendly place. But now, back to the current political hopefuls. The problem, for lack of a better word, that I personally have with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Ron DeSantis, both whom I like quite a bit, to be honest, as I've noted, is that they are both at the core of it all, politicians and recognizable political figures. And to be honest, I don't very much trust politicians and or political figures. Yes, it seems that Ron DeSantis seems to have an amazing track record thus far, but I can only hope that he and Kennedy are altruistic in their intentions for running for office and throwing their respective hats in the political ring and arena. Vivek Ramaswamy, like Donald Trump, is a legitimately successful entrepreneur outside of the political arena. But he is also a politician. So again, though I do like what I've heard so far and what he has said thus far, I do not fully know what his underlying intentions are either. Will he continue to advocate on behest of the people? Will he, like Donald Trump, do the job for free? Will any of the other candidates do the right thing and offer to do the job for free, or at least for a cut in salary? I guess Only time will tell, and only time will reveal the truth. Donald Trump has proven his success in the entrepreneurial realm, and to some extent, a fairly large extent, also in the political arena, an arena he had previously no experience in, and still did a pretty darn good job. Sure, the man did not, let me repeat, did not carry out everything he said he would do, nor that he set out to do. But then again, to be fair and honest, he was pretty much running the country with one hand tied behind his back, facing opposition from every corner of the Oval Office and then some, with people trying daily to destroy him, to destroy his reputation, and to destroy his presidency. The very same people who cost him his second term in office, whether you want to close your eyes to the fact or not. In fact, especially with the recent occurrence, they are still trying to destroy him and destroy his life, even outside the political arena, just so that they can prevent him from re-entering the race and possibly having the legitimate opportunity to finish what he started and just possibly, finally, successfully draining the swamp. Now, I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to discount that the man can act impulsively foolish and childishly, engaging in Twitter wars and failing to hold his tongue where it should be held, and his disposition, just to name a few of his flaws. But we all have some flaws, that is. The aforementioned are perhaps his greatest downfall. He really, truly, for his own sake and the sake of the nation and how both are perceived, needs to get a grip. Needs to get a grip and reel it in. I've heard people describe Mr. Trump as a showman and that's what sells. But we're not hiring a showman. We're not going to the movies, and we're not hiring a ringleader for the circus. Though circus is probably the most accurate description of Washington, D.C., making Trump the best ringleader there is. Still, like I said just a moment ago, we are not hiring a showman. We are hiring a president, a figure of authority who should be taken seriously, who should conduct and present himself accordingly with class, sophistication, and dignity. But also a person who can be and remain approachable and relatable, and who can effortlessly relate to the people, while also leaving the theatrics and shenanigans aside. Shenanigans, many of us can put aside because we know and understand that he can get the job done. But Mr. Trump needs to understand and embrace that there are others who see his so-called showmanship as a complete and utter turnoff. And personally, especially at this stage in the game, that's not a risk I think he should be willing or should want to take. Now, if you ask me, but what does my opinion count? But if you ask me what I would like, I would personally like to see a Donald Trump Ron DeSantis ticket, with people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Vivek Ramaswamy, as well as Dr. Carson and others put in positions of prominence and power, sort of like an A-team of Avengers, if you will, to effectively and efficiently help Donald Trump do the job he started and was elected to do, to drain the swamp, to take back our nation, and to make America great again, if that's even still remotely possible, especially since the current comical administration, led by Mr. Magoo and company, has done an extremely exemplary job at least trying to ensure that that concept is more of an impossibility than any sort of possibility. My biggest problem with for lack of a better term, with all of the candidates. Yes, I said all of the candidates, even with Mr. Trump and Mr. DeSantis, the two most no-nonsense types of figures in this ridiculous rat race, is that they are not nearly abrasive or tough enough, at least not for my taste. Yep, I don't think Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis are tough enough. Oh my. Take, for instance, when Mr. DeSantis sent the immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, only to have them expelled in a matter of 24 hours. I think he should have remained relentless and kept sending busload after busload, boatload after boatload, plane load after plane load, truckload after truckload of these same immigrants to these prestigious people's backyards, to their front yards, and even to their personal properties, their children's schools. Heck, let them set up camp right in front of their country clubs and yacht clubs. Candidates need to be much tougher on the issues overall. At least that's my opinion, especially if they are truly serious about normalizing our nation once again and making it great again. Let's start by looking at the abortion issue, for example. I think that not only should there be a time cap on abortion, but that politicians should entirely outlaw it. Why? Well, we're dealing with life and death here, essentially. Heck, if the woke express concern about killing trees, which is commendable and a very important issue, well, because nature in and of itself is important. It is beautiful. It preserves our air quality and our quality of life. But then how can these same people excuse the slaughter of unborn infants? How? Because they, the politicians, and those who are willingly puppeteered by them, don't actually give a damn about life in general, that is. Unless, of course, it's their life or lives of those they love. But even then, just look at Jill Biden and Mrs. Fetterman, who willingly and willfully sold out their spouses for fame, fortune, and glory. And so your unborn children and mine mean absolutely nothing to them. Though probably highly unpopular, our leaders need to lead and take the lead on the abortion issue and passing legislation that promises to build on our strength that has traditionally stemmed from faith and family and which protects both, including the lives of our unborn children, while also discouraging promiscuity and reckless abandon by irresponsible, selfish individuals who consider killing a viable option for their indiscretions. In addition, the current candidates also need to turn their attention on our abysmal and continually failing and faltering education system, stressing a mandatory reform. Yes, I said mandatory reform, an academic reformation, if you will, where school budgets are cut should the powers that be within the school system not be willing to comply or abide by the mandate that requires a return to basics. What basics? Basics that demand that the educational arenas abdicate immediately the current curriculum, including Common Core, which is senseless or whatever it's called these days, abandoning the teaching of CRT, gender theory, LGBTQ and queer ideology, including drag queen, story hour, and the like. Better yet, our political protectors need to criminalize most, if not all, sex talk in the classroom, especially for certain age groups and without the knowledge and or consent of the parents and or guardians. These same officials, these same elected by the people officials, need to put policy in place that holds the schools and teachers accountable and that enforces abiding by the rules via legislations that will revoke the teaching license of those professionals who cross and or blur the lines, period. Our leaders must work with educational officials to reprise the entire education system and put into place policy that facilitates learning, not indoctrination, learning. Among other criteria, schools should be mandated to have a dress code. Bring back paddling for unruly, disobedient students who continually cause distractions. A swat in the ass never killed anyone. In fact, it built character. Politicians need to work with school boards to bring back courses such as home economics and shop, more physical education, etc. Put into place programs that require deviant, for lack of a better word, students to participate in a rehabilitation program by recruiting them to clean up the school and the community. And in fact, all schools should implement what they do in Asia and have students, all students, good, bad, indifferent, etc., all students participate in maintaining not only the facilities, but growing gardens, harvesting the food, and helping prepare healthy meals for their peers. Our leaders at large need to crack down not solely on crack addicts and their suppliers, but also on their enablers. And who are these enablers? They are also the doctors, nurses, and medical professionals who, despite their prestigious degrees, prescribe these poisonous pills for their own profit. In the same vein, our leaders, starting with the president, need to immediately address our homeless crisis. This they can easily accomplish by removing drug paraphernalia vending machines and calling for and conducting mass, and I mean mass, arrests that place these people in rehab facilities in lieu of jail, that cut off their access to the outside world and therefore their access to narcotics, including weed, which many term a harmless drug, but harmless and drugs are not synonyms, they're antonyms. So including weed and making them part of a mandatory national beautification program that puts these people hooked on drugs and living on the streets, puts them to work for the government so that we the people don't have to pay government workers to do the job and pay them such extravagant salaries that most often are extracted through our taxes. This way we help clean up our country as we help people clean up their act. And our politicians need to criminalize all drugs rather than finding ways and reasons to decriminalize more and more of them. And that should start from the president and his mandates. Furthermore, regardless of who gets voted in, I think it's high time that we not only built not just a border wall, but a beautifully, artistically inspired, architecturally sound border wall. Better yet, an electric fence, a modern work of art that will by its very nature ensure no one dares defy the rules, defy the regulation, or our laws. If people want to come here legally, I am all for it. I'm cheering them on. In fact, I'm all for making it easier for those who want to abide by the rules and come here and build a better life. A better life for themselves, their families, their loved ones, and while also contributing to building a better nation. Otherwise, our message must be loud and must be clear. Stay out or get the hell out, as I am personally sick and tired of lax laws making mockeries of once great nations, not just America, across the globe, allowing them to devolve into third world countries, the likes of which most of the immigrants supposedly fled to escape. How is this making life better for them or anyone else for that matter? Our rights and freedoms must also be ensured and preserved, including our right of free speech and the right to bear arms. Guns don't kill people any more than forks or spoons make people fat. More politicians need to follow Ron DeSantis' lead and unapologetically take a shot and necessary actions at the behemoths such as Disney who are trying to destroy us. Serious talks need to take place and stricter rules put into place with clear definitions and understandings of what is and is not acceptable as primetime programming and family entertainment for the traditional American family, a unit that is also in danger of being not only destroyed, but obliterated. And if you think that's crossing the line, it is not, because you can't always monitor what your kids watch or what they are exposed to. So our political leaders need to put the laws and precautions in place for us when we can't be there for our kids. These same leaders have to not only put families first, but traditional American standards and values first. Of course, being respectful of the variety of cultures that have built our nation and have made us the once great melting pot we once were. And in general, putting America as a nation first. That's their responsibility since they are our representatives and the representative of the people who live here, not the people of other countries and other nations and so on and so forth. They need to put immediately into place policy and protocol that shifts the focus back on the people who put them in power and what they want and what they demand from those they've elected. The normal people, not the aberrants. They need to regain America's reverence, respect, and dignity, and need to establish in no uncertain terms that we are not a nation or a people, regardless of where we all originally came from, that can be dismissed or toyed with. Our aspiring leaders need to be and get both real and tough on real and tough issues. Issues that are plaguing America and the traditional American voter and family. We have to go back to the way things used to be, back to our glory days. We, in essence, need to take 1,000,000 steps back if we are ever to move forward in a positive direction. And I'm not 100% sure that anyone, yes, I said anyone, any of the candidates is ready, willing, and able to do it. Why? Primarily because it may compromise their chances. It may compromise their popularity and or skew the vote. But it's important for all the candidates to remember that with great power comes even greater responsibility. And with that responsibility, you will be faced with many choices and many challenges, both of which will guarantee that you will not be liked by everyone. In fact, you will be liked by some of the time rather, but not all of the people, all of the time. And that's just part of the job and the job description. Last but not least, it is up to us to make it abundantly loud and clear to those who are seeking our support and or our vote that we will settle for nothing less than someone who is strong enough to go against the grain. Strong enough to do the right thing, because that is what at its core is called integrity. And that is exactly what is missing from our nation and from our current leaders, our nations and the people therein. So, with that now said and out of the way, may the best, strongest, and most qualified, sincere candidate with altruistic intentions win. Otherwise, may we the people be enlightened enough, with good judgment enough, to ensure that they all fall flat on their face.